Day 13. This morning I had the chance to go to Saint-Chapelle, which is an amazing place if you haven't been there. It is a smaller chapel, but it is some of the best stained glass work you're going to find in Paris, in France perhaps. You do need to book ahead. It does always get filled up, so if you're coming, do book it ahead. Completely worth it, and just really enjoyed that experience of being in the stained glass and just seeing the magnificence of it, I suppose, the artistic value of it, and just the sheer beauty of it being there. And right next door is the Conciergerie, which sits within Palais de Justice, the Palace of Justice, which is still a working court, as far as I can tell, lots of security around. And the bottom part was historically very much jail cells during the French Revolution, and there is a lot of history and a lot of education within the Conciergerie around really the French Revolution, what it was about, some of the values that underpinned it, the positive things that came forward from the revolution, and really starting to better recognize a more fair and just justice system, as well as fundamental human rights on some level. And of course, shifting from a republic shifting from a royal monarchy to a republic, and what that meant for the French. So really, really enjoyed that, and then did get a little bit of quieter cafe time with a coffee this afternoon, and just spent a bit of time reflecting on this experience, what it meant, and what I wanted out of it, what I'm getting out of it so far, and what is unfolding within it, I suppose. And I think the main thing that I was reflecting on was the idea of groundlessness. It is a term borrowed from the Buddhists, from Pema Chödrön, is where I have heard it talked about. And it really represents, I think it is a very accurate word. I think it represents how disorienting it can be when we don't feel like we're on solid ground, when it feels like we've lost what normally is familiar to us, what is solid and reliable for us. And certainly I've experienced times, I think most of us have experienced times, when the groundlessness is present there, and not in a way that we expected or planned for. This could be the sudden change in a job situation. This could be the sudden end to a relationship. This can be losing somebody very special in our lives. And it really does shake us quite a bit. It removes kind of a sense of some of the things that we depend on, that solid ground that we want to be able to walk on, that we look to provide us some of that stability. And yet, this is an experience of chosen groundlessness for me. This is stripping away so much of the familiar, and there's parts of it that I maybe miss a little bit, or feel a little bit different. I'm shocked that I haven't driven in 5 weeks, and yet I don't really miss it. I am more than happy to take the metro all around the city, as I have been doing. I don't feel put out by any means in being able to transport myself around like that. I don't know if I want to drive in Paris. I could drive in Boulogne. I'd get used to driving in Paris if I needed to, but at the same time, that routine is gone, and that's forced different routines. And some of those I really have wanted going into this experience. As I've talked about, I'm a big fan of the European lifestyle, and so I am quite okay getting just enough food for the next couple of days, of dropping by the bakery for fresh bread, or dropping by the butcher, or dropping by the cheese shop, and getting away from the giant weekly shop, and really away to what's happening over the next couple of days, and buying really only what I can carry in a bag. I'm not going to get one of those wheelie carts because I'm not here long enough, and depending on how far the store is from my apartment, I might make different decisions around that as well. And so this is a sense of learning about myself, learning habits, patterns, where I look to find that familiar ground, and what happens when it's not there in some ways. There are parts of me that are consistent. The parts of me that, to quote John Kabat-Zinn, wherever you go, there you are. I'm feeling some of those. I think it doesn't seem to matter which continent I'm on. I'm probably not up for late nights. That's just not how I'm wired. So I have what I would consider a reasonable bedtime by North American standards. Certainly, it's probably a bit early here in France. I'm up at 7 usually here. I can be up at 5 or 6 at home. And even at 7, I look across the courtyard and there are very, very few apartments with lights on, but that's just how I'm wired. And it doesn't matter where I go. That's kind of, it seems that's what my body clock is going to be. I realize places in my days where I can tend to just hang out in my office and end up kind of surfing somewhat aimlessly and being less productive or less focused or less present than I want to be. And I think here it's a little bit of a different space. It is not a desk, it is at the kitchen table, and I may be a little less inclined. I also usually recognize that while I may need certain pieces of information if I want to go somewhere or something like that, some of the mindless scrolling I probably do less of here because it does feel more tempting to get out and go explore and go do things within my neighborhood or across town or have things planned for my day. And so just finding all of those pieces, understanding what is important to me, what do I need more of in my life, and this is a process of understanding what feels like it aligns for me rather than a life that has followed patterns, a life that has done what everybody else has done what was expected of me, following the societal script that was given to me. So I realized how important walkability is to me in whatever city I'm in, and that more and more I want to be in a place where I can simply step outside the front door and have easier access to things around me and not always need a 15-20 minute drive to go somewhere, to get coffee, to get groceries, to do any of those sorts of things. And it asked me what trade-offs I suppose I would want to make within that, and I would be willing to make some trade-offs. I am not fixated on the house that I have. It is great, it is lovely, I enjoy it, and yet I'm not one of those people who takes great pride in raising roses or getting my yard perfect. I try and maintain it at minimum to make sure that the neighbors aren't going to complain about it. But it's not a huge passion of mine. It is part of having a house, but for me, it is not, there isn't great joy that I get out of it. And given the choice between a huge range of restaurants and art galleries and a theater and symphonies versus kind of yards and lawns and driving everywhere, I am more willing to look at something like an apartment, I think. I think this will be pieces of me that evolve over time, and I continue to be committed to what does my dream life look like for me, and how do I get there? And I think I've been pleasantly surprised over and over that as I take steps towards it, paths open up and things become clearer, and all of a sudden I am living elements of my dream life, and it is such a pleasant surprise, but I don't think it is particularly unique. I think it is available to anybody who's willing to do a little bit of the work required to get there, I suppose. I am loving and will probably continue with digital nomad experiences for a while. This is not my first time living away from home for a month at a time, simply to experience a different city. I've done one in my own country and spent last January in Mexico City, and I'm sure there are more on the horizon. And when I think about what that experience is, some of that is the groundlessness, some of that is learning what I love and what I enjoy in different places and what I want more of. But some of it is also, I think, for me, the right mix of new and novel as well as routines. So finding the routines in the work that I do, but finding the new and novel in the places that I am. And perhaps for others, that's a different equation. There are those who maybe want to stay in a particular geographic place they are, but need new and novel in different ways that show up for them. And this is not about being prescriptive. This is not about asking anybody to follow my path by any means, because my path is my path that is representative of what aligns for me, where my passions are, what brings me the greatest joy and meaning in any given day. And for others, it can and should look different. And so this is more around, how do you get out of your comfort zone? How do you break free of some of those unconscious pieces of your life that simply are there, that you might be leaning on as comfort mechanisms, as familiar places that may not bring you the joy that they could, but are a little bit of a crutch at times, perhaps. And that may be an over-exaggeration, but what is it that you're doing in your life because you've always done it? And it's okay, but it doesn't necessarily actually make your life feel any fuller or give your life any more meaning. And that's the pieces that I'm trying to figure out. I think I love this sense of being global, of getting to experience some of the best cities in the world, because they are those epicenters of culture and of history and of ideas and innovations. And I like the energy that surrounds different cities. I equally like hearing Australian accents, and there seem to be a whole lot of New Yorkers that come to Paris, or people from London or from Berlin. And I like the idea of somewhat shrinking the world by really having a great understanding of different cities of the world, having a personal connection and a deeper sense of the city, because this was never about going to as many attractions as I could, or just having more time to visit more things, buy more tickets to more museums and galleries and events, but really doing that a little bit more, but also finding a daily rhythm within it, also figuring out what it would mean to be more like a local, to immerse myself into a particular place. And I think what you discover is you get a better sense of the culture, you get a better sense of the people. You want to be away from all of those kind of over touristy places. So I get it, if you only have a few days in Paris, it is going to be the Louvre, the Eiffel Tower, Arc de Triomphe, Notre Dame. And you'll spend most of your time in the restaurants that cater to tourists, surrounded by tourists, always people that are speaking English effortlessly. And I don't know that that really stretches you, that it calls on you to be adaptive, that it forces you to look with new eyes and to understand. I find I have so much more curiosity here, so much more patience. I feel far less stuck into any particular opinions, and I think travel allows me to show up without as many preconceived ideas, and at a time and a place when we have a more polarized society, when I'm right and you're wrong, and this identity versus that identity, and there's very little dialogue. I think that travel enriches the space and the willingness I have to seek out new perspectives, to understand different points of view, to really try and intuit a country or a place's values by the things that I see. As I've talked about through different experiences that I've had, the way people take their kids to school, how people spend their weekends, what it means to go out to a restaurant, what time they go to bed, or they go to work, all of those sorts of things give me a deeper sense of the culture here. And I'm just really, really enjoying it. And also finding within myself areas where I'm more aligned to the culture than I might be in a North American culture. And that doesn't mean that one culture is superior in any way, but I understand myself through understanding different cultures. And I think that is that is the richness that can happen out of travel. And that is, I think, the value of travel when it can be done with enough depth and curiosity and time that it doesn't simply feel like a to-do list and kind of doing what everybody else does. And I think it is challenging in some ways because our productivity side can feel like we've seen fewer things or didn't fully take advantage or have fewer social media pics to post. But I think something in that slow travel movement makes a lot of sense to me. And when does it tip from travel to simply immersion experiences? I think that's an interesting piece for me to ponder a little bit as well, because I would argue that I am traveling, but hopefully not quite as a tourist in the same way. And I think that's really important to me, and that is a big part of this experience. So really, really great day, and just reflecting on the experience, knowing that the experience continues to unfold, and part of me wants to know how it all comes out, but I don't get to know fully, and so I have to be part of the mystery as well. Whether there will be great insights at the end of this, or simply just a really great experience and a whole new relationship with Paris, remains to be seen. And that is the adventure, and that is having the faith to go on the adventure and to see what comes next. So as always, inviting you to reflect on what resonates in what I've talked about. What do you want in your life? Where are you willing to create new sets and spaces of groundlessness to better understand yourself? I think it can be really just as simple as that. So perhaps we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.